Hi friends, we are going to see how to make some eggless marble cakes. This one I am going to do into mini cakes. Maida around 1 cup. You can also use all-purpose flour. Some unsalted butter around 100 grams. You have to melt it into room temperature, and then thick curd around 200 grams. Powdered sugar, the regular sugar you can powder it into 200 grams. Baking powder around 1.5 teaspoon. If you have baking soda, you can also use that. Cocoa powder around 1 tablespoon. So what we are going to do is, in a mixer or in a mixing bowl, you can add the room temperature butter. Don't melt it, it shouldn't be hot. And then add the powdered sugar and start beating it up in the mixer or by hand or by a handheld mixer nicely into a creamy texture. And while that is happening in one side, what we are going to do is we are going to put the curd, around 200 grams of curd. And now here, either you can use baking powder as it is, as I mentioned before. Half a teaspoon of the baking powder will go in this, and the other 1 teaspoon when we put the flour. But instead of baking powder, you can also use baking soda. And I am using vanilla essence. You can use any kind of extract or essence you want based on the flavor of the cake you want to make. You can use orange, pineapple, any flavor that you wish. But here now, instead of adding baking powder, you can also add baking soda to make it more fluffy and soft. But this itself is a soft cake, so not necessary. But if you are going to add it, around half a teaspoon of the baking soda here, or else half a teaspoon of baking powder in the yogurt. Let it sit so that it will start bubbling little, and that mixture goes inside the sugar and butter cream. So once in that, add it properly and mix it up again nicely so that it becomes into a nice creamy flowing texture. So baking soda makes it nice and soft and fluffy, but without that also this cake is already a soft cake. We are going to sieve the flour, and here while I am going to sieve the flour, I am going to add around 1 teaspoon of the baking powder here. Then sieve it through nicely, and once you have added the sieved flour, again, if you are going to use a mixer well and good, or else by hand, first slightly fold the flour in and then start beating it up nicely so that you don't have any kind of lumps. If you are doing in a mixer like this, it will automatically break down the lumps, but if you are going to do it by hand, fold the flour inside slowly, make sure all the flour is mixed, and then start beating it up nicely so that it becomes into a lumpless, nice battery texture. This is the texture you are going to require, nice, creamy and soft. Now half of this I am going to take it in a bowl separately, and in the other half I am going to add the cocoa powder. Since it's a marble cake, I am adding cocoa powder, but if you are doing into any other simple flavor cake, you can add the flavoring in one shot and just directly start pouring it into the baking tray. But here, since I am going to do it into a marble, I am making half of vanilla and the other half as cocoa. So this mixture, what I am going to do now is add it into the same bowl, but only in the other half of the bowl, so that I can transfer it into a piping bag. But if you are going to do it at home in one single mold, add 1 spoon of the vanilla mixture, then on top of that add another spoon of chocolate, and then again 1 spoon of vanilla, like that, layer by layer you can add it, so that if you are making into one single mold or a loaf, and once that bakes, when you cut it, you can see that nice marbling texture in it. But since here in this method I am going to use a piping bag now, so if you see now, what I will do is I will slowly push it in, but at the same time the marbling effect will be there in the piping bag, so when I pipe it out, I will be getting the same texture. It won't mix completely. There will be some dark chocolate color, there will be some plain white vanilla flavor also, like. And once you are putting it in a piping bag, if you don't have a piping bag, you can simple nice plastic bag and nicely pack it up. So if you see the marbling texture, Now I am going to make it into small mini, but if you are going to use it in a big tray or in a single cake mold, then what I said before, add one layer of chocolate, then one layer of vanilla, tap it, again one layer of chocolate, so that you get a nice layering of marbles. And once you do that, you can just run a small toothpick through it so that it gives a nice marble effect. But in this case, as you can see itself now, you can see the both different colors separate. And this one is going to be going into an oven at around 160 degrees Celsius to 180 degrees Celsius, depending on the oven, at around 20 to 30 minutes. 180 at 20 minutes is my standard timing. So you get a nice marble effect like this. And now here, what you can do is you can melt some chocolate with a little bit of butter and pour it on top, then dust it with some sugar, any other method of garnishing. So here what I have done is, there is one plain chocolate, there is some dusted, then I add some chocolate chips on top too.